1/3 of all murder cases in America remain open.
He had told me that if I opened my eyes, he would slit my throat.
Each one is called a cold case.
The DNA evidence taken from the victim was a match. The Linden rapist was at it again.
Based on the hit A&E television program.
A phone call is placed, one that changes a family's life forever.
Cold Case Files, the podcast.
You could see the fire in his eyes. He screamed at me, "You want it? Get your tape recorder out."
Get new episodes of Cold Case Files every Tuesday on Podcast One, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 318 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing very well. Still busy. Got a lot of stuff going on with dance and graduation parties. And
I'm glad you're graduating from your dance academy.
Yeah. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Dusty Kendall jumped out at our highest level.
What's going on, Dusty?
Jill.
Hey, Jill.
David Rand.
We'll appreciate that, dude.
John Holland.
Hey, John.
Matthew Scovrin.
Hey, Matthew.
Bianca Hapgood.
Hey, appreciate that, Hapgood.
Janelle Malamatos.
Hey, Janelle.
Which is really fun to say.
Malamatos?
Yeah, I'm enjoying that one. Pamela Sue.
Hey, Sue.
Natalie Peak.
Well, there's Peak.
Mary Sandilands.
Well, thank you, Mary.
Sandy Carter.
Hey, Sandy.
Vicky Jory.
Well, hi, Vicky.
Wendy Prophet.
Hey, Wendy.
And last but not least, Kathleen Kurtz.
Well, appreciate that, Kurtz.
And if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Cian Staker.
Well, appreciate that, Cian.
Yeah, we also had some great PayPal donations from Evan Clausen.
Hey, Evan.
And a pretty large donation from Andrea Seddon.
Well, look at Seddon stepping up.
Yeah, thanks to everyone. Gibbs right now on True Crime All the Time. We have an episode out on Matthew James Phelps. This is a guy who murdered his wife.
Yeah.
They were newlyweds, hadn't been married that long. And his defense was that he drank too much cough syrup.
Cough syrup did it.
And it caused him to murder his wife.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting episode. Make sure you check that out. All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I'm ready.
We're calling this one the Severed Feet Mystery.
Yes.
Since August 2007, at least 20 shoes containing human feet have been found along the shores of British Columbia and Washington State. This has become known as the Severed Feet Mystery. Some of the remains have been identified, but others have not. And there are several cases where a cause of death is unknown. Now, severed is actually not a real accurate way to describe the feet that have been found, because severed means the feet were cut off. And there's really no evidence to prove that this occurred. The feet are actually disarticulated and were separated from the bodies by natural decomposition processes.
But we didn't want to say the disarticulated feet mystery.
Oh, you didn't want to say something you have a hard time saying?
Exactly.
So to me, when I hear the word severed, I think Dexter, right? What Dexter did on that show where you're actually cutting parts of the body off. This disarticulation to me is more of a separation.
Yes.
Of the joints or, whatever, which would happen naturally as the body decomposes. On August 20th, 2007, a 12-year-old girl spotted a single size 12 men's blue and white running shoe on a beach on Jedediah Island, British Columbia. She found a sock inside the shoe, and inside that sock, she found a human foot. Okay, you're a 12-year-old girl. You're running down the beach, you're playing, you're having a great day until you find a human foot inside a shoe.
Yeah.
That day has gone to pot real quickly.
Probably going to ruin your day for sure.
Yeah. The shoe was produced in 2003 and was mostly distributed in India. according to the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC. On August 26th, 2007, a couple on Gabriola Island, located near Jedediah Island, found a size 12 men's black and white Reebok shoe. Inside was another human foot. This shoe was produced in 2004 and distributed globally, but mostly in North America, and is no longer sold. Both of the feet that were found were right feet. So, to me, 2 feet are found within 6 days?
Right.
That on its own is a little troubling.
Sure it is.
But then the fact that they were both size 12s. What are the odds? Size 12 in men's is not the most common size.
It is not.
A little bit bigger than the most common. Common's 10 and a half?
Yeah.
I think is the most common.
What I wear.
Size here.
Yeah.
And they're both right feet. And the shoes are different, so they don't have anything to do with each other.
Yeah, exactly. But you got to wonder what's going on.
It's very strange.
Very
no
strange.
doubt about it. Gary Cox of the RCMP told the Vancouver Sun at that time, 2 being found in such a short period of time is quite suspicious. Finding 1 foot is like 1,000,000 to 1 odds, but to find 2 is crazy. I've heard of dancers with 2 left feet, but come on.
Like he's trying to make it a little funny right there.
Yeah, I thought that was a little strange.
Yeah.
But the first part I get, right? What are the odds that you're going to find a human foot on the beach? What are the odds that you're going to find 2 within a week on 2 different beaches, but which are very close together?
I mean, if you found just shoes.
Different.
Yeah. You think, well, okay, I guess maybe somebody dumped a bunch of stuff in the sea.
Yeah, threw it overboard.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Things are washing ashore, but this is human feet inside. It's a different story.
DNA analysis eventually linked the first foot to a man who went missing in 2004. The second foot was linked to a man who went missing in 2006. So in some of these cases that we're going to talk about, there are no names associated with the remains, even though they have been identified.
Yeah.
And that's because some of the families requested to keep the information private.
Sure, they're right.
Now, some of these have not been identified at all. In 2008, 5 more feet were found on Canadian beaches. The public and media outlets speculated that there could be a serial killer who threw human remains into the ocean.
Wouldn't be hard to speculate.
No, it wouldn't. And again, I always go back to Dexter. He dismembered bodies. He threw them in the ocean. Now, we said how strange it was to find 1. What are the odds to find 2? Now you found a whole bunch more the next year, and it's all in Canada. Pretty tough for your mind not to go to kind of the serial killer route.
Yeah.
I think the argument against the serial killer is that we know the oceans can carry things, all over the world.
Quite far.
So is it the work of one person, or do they just all end up, being found in Canada, and that's kind of more of a coincidence? Over the next 12 years, 15 feet would wash ashore around Vancouver Island in a network of waterways called the Salish Sea, according to the National Geographic. 6 feet were also found in Puget Sound, which is at the southern end of the Salish Sea. That's hard to say, and I don't even know if I'm saying it correctly. But
Salish? Mm-hmm. I think you're saying it right.
I'm going with that. On February 8th, 2008, a right foot was found on Valdez Island, located in the Strait of Georgia. The foot was found inside a men's blue and white Nike running shoe. The shoe was produced in 2003 and was sold in the U.S. and Canada from February 1st to June 30th, 2003. And I found that timing to be very odd. So you're telling me that they only sold this shoe for 5 months.
Well, it's been a popular shoe maybe, or maybe it wasn't so popular and they quit carrying it.
But see, shoes end up in the discount stores or the outlets, right? Nike has outlet stores that sell last year's model.
That's true.
I just find it very hard to believe when they reported that they were only sold during this 5-month period. But hey, we have to go by the reporting. On May 22nd, 2008, a right foot was found inside a women's size 7 New Balance running shoe. The foot was found on Kirkland Island, located in the Fraser River near Richmond. The shoe was produced in June 1999 and distributed in major retail stores. On June 16th, 2008, 2 people found a left foot inside a running shoe near a beach on Westham Island in the Fraser River south of Vancouver. The man who found the foot told The Guardian, "We were just walking out in the morning when we saw a shoe floating in the water right there. We thought, oh no, there's another one. Anytime you see a shoe floating in the water, you kind of dread what you're going to find. We flipped it over with a stick and saw that it was all yellow inside. Ugh. You could see there was a foot in there. It was pretty nasty and it stank."
I can't even imagine.
He used the word stank.
Stank.
But just go back to what this guy said. Now, obviously, this is hitting the news, right? Every time one of these is found,
right,
to the point where he's saying every time you see a shoe in the water, you're afraid that there's going to be a foot in there.
Yeah. Here's another one.
And he was right. And it stank.
Yeah.
One man believed the foot could be the remains of his 2 brothers and 2 passengers who were involved in a plane crash off Quadra Island in February 2005. The plane crash occurred minutes away from where the foot was discovered. One man was found, but the other 4 passengers were missing. Kevin DeCock, the brother of missing passengers Doug and Trevor DeCock, said he may have stirred up the ocean floor during a search the previous summer. He told CBC, "I was out on the water conducting some surveys, trying to bring up the engine from the plane crash, and I was dragging a hook. And 2 weeks after that, the first foot showed up." So this is an interesting theory.
Sure it is, yeah.
And it does make some sense to me. If a plane went into the water with 4 passengers, at some point, you would think things would start to dislodge. I don't want to be too gruesome,
right,
but and inside a shoe, is that going to maybe float up to the surface of the water and eventually end up on a beach somewhere? Could be
possible.
Could be possible. DeCock's father gave the authorities a DNA sample in 2008, but BC Chief Coroner Terry Smith only told the press that they had full DNA profiles for the first 3 feet, and officials were unable to match them. At that time, Delta Police Constable Charlene Brooks said the police were not releasing any information about the foot pending a criminal investigation. As quoted by the Globe and Mail, she said, "We don't know what we're dealing with, so we operate on that criminal investigation premise so as to guard against any compromises down the road should this be a matter of foul play." And I think this is really smart. You have no idea what's going on with these feet.
Right.
Better off to treat it as a criminal investigation.
Sure.
Because there's no harm if it later turns out that, nothing criminal occurred.
Right.
If you do it the other way around, though, and you don't go by the book as far as investigating it as a crime, and it turns out that these are all murder victims, well, then you've really messed up.
Yeah.
Now, one common theory was that the feet belonged to the victims of a 2004 tsunami in Asia, or that the feet came from the victims of other sea and air accidents.
Possibilities.
All possibilities. Yet another theory was that the feet may be the remains of the victims of serial killer Robert Pickton, who was convicted of 6 murders and confessed to murdering 43 others. We covered Pickton on True Crime All the Time.
We did.
One of the most despicable human beings that I think has ever lived.
Yeah.
He was just a piece of work.
I'm just glad I wasn't eating any barbecues up there around that time.
Yeah. Yeah. But, Robert Pickton's not the only serial killer probably in that area.
No.
So it could have been another serial killer, not a serial killer. Another theory was that the area was being used as a body dumping ground for organized crime. The Toronto Star noted that in the past few years, 20 men had gone missing in the Vancouver area, and that in 2008, 4 men between the ages of 19 and 32 had gone missing. And you and I have talked about it numerous times. Right? What is one of the kind of go-to, or what has been one of the go-tos for organized crime over the years? And it's to dump bodies weighted down in a river, the ocean, a lake, whatever it is. So at some point, does the body get to a situation where things start to pop off?
Yeah.
And I think that's plausible as well.
It is possible. I was thinking maybe it could be something related to a funeral home as a possibility as well. Because I remember around here at one point, we had some funeral home that was not burying the bodies in...
As a cost-cutting measure?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. That's scary to think about. Well, theories abound, right, in this case. And you're going to have that because it is very mysterious and it's kind of hard to completely discount any theory, really. On June 18th, 2008, a witness described seeing what looked like a foot inside a shoe on a beach near Campbell River. On June 19th, the BC Coroner Service announced that the foot was actually a skeletonized animal paw inside a shoe with a sock and packed with dried seaweed. Chief Coroner Terry Smith said, according to CBC, this is a very, very senseless and thoughtless act. Clearly, it wasn't done with any thought or feelings of the families of these missing people.
Yeah, that's just somebody really stupid.
Now, and man, we see it so often. You know, whether it's somebody, you know, placing a nasty telephone call to a victim's family, writing a letter, acting as though they had something to do with something that they really didn't. I don't always understand the motive. They're trying to, you know, get a rise out of people. Yeah. It makes them feel good to see the police trying to figure it out.
They're just a sick individual.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really horrible thing to do. RCMP Constable Annie Linto said the police were conducting a public mischief investigation and were determined to find the person responsible. I'm wondering what the crime would be, though. I get it. It's a horrible thing to do from the standpoint of that, you know, these families out there looking for their loved ones. They're trying to match these feet and you're kind of playing a game, but what's the crime?
Yeah, maybe something with disrupting
public mischief, I guess.
Yeah, or disrupting an investigation or something.
Yeah,
maybe there's something to ties in.
I think they would figure something out.
Yeah.
They'll find something to put on you. On July 10th, 2008, the RCMP announced that the feet found on February 8th and June 16th belonged to the same person based on DNA testing, and there were no signs any of the feet were severed by tools of trauma, according to CBC. It was also said that the foot found in May belonged to a female. So tools of trauma to me would be a saw.
Right. Axe.
An axe, a knife, something, some type of tool used to sever the foot. Now, in my mind, though, that doesn't take away the possibility of foul play.
No, it doesn't.
You could still have foul play that didn't involve dismemberment.
Of course.
RCMP Constable Annie Linto said, as reported by CBC, it appears that these feet have naturally disarticulated from the bodies through natural process. And I get that. But again, to me, it's how the bodies got into the water. You know, if it was a result of the tsunami or something like that, well, then there's no foul play.
Exactly.
That's just a natural disaster.
But if they throw it over the side of a boat with a block of concrete attached to them,
that's foul play.
That's foul play.
However, in an article published the same day, the Toronto Star quoted her as saying that although the feet were not severed, we have to be aware that these could be homicide victims. So kind of backing up what we were just talking about. On July 19th, 2008, an RCMP spokesman told CBC News that one of the feet was identified as belonging to a man who was reported missing from the BC Lower Mainland in 2007. Familial DNA was used to make the identification. The man's name was not released. He was described as depressed, and foul play was not suspected. So I talked about accident. I talked about natural disaster. We talked about foul play. What we haven't talked about, and I think what they are possibly alluding to here, is that maybe this man, because he was depressed, took his life. And that is an option that has to be considered.
Yeah.
A day earlier, on July 18th, a coroner in Washington state said that he would be speaking to the BC Coroner Service about a body found on Orcas Island in the San Juan Archipelago. The body did not have its right arm, left hand, or feet. The body was found 5 months before the first feet were found. So it sounds like they're trying to see if there's a possible match there.
Some type of connection.
On August 1st, another foot was found on a beach about 31 miles west of Port Angeles, Washington, on the Strait of Juan de Fuca, which separates Vancouver Island from the Olympic Peninsula in Washington. According to Clallam County Undersheriff Ron Peregrine, a right foot was found inside a men's athletic shoe, possibly used for hiking. A woman walking along Jim Creek found the foot on the first and reported it early on the second. Washington authorities contacted the RCMP to see if there was a connection with the other feet found in British Columbia.
Wonder how one collects the foot. Do you just pick it up?
I think you pick the shoe up.
Yeah. Take it back with you? Or do you put it up somewhere?
Oh, you mean if you're like just this woman who's hiking?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think you touch it.
Yeah.
I think you just get back to a phone and call the police.
Say, it's in this location.
And hope it's still there when they arrive. I mean, I wouldn't want to touch it because what if I destroy some evidence?
Right.
What if it is a criminal act? I don't want to be that person.
No, you do not.
And my thought is, it would be different if somebody's life was in danger.
Sure.
You would take steps to do whatever you had to do. There's really no danger here. You have a foot in a shoe. Could somebody come along and pick it up? Yeah, I guess.
Possibility.
But the other thing I want to talk about is Washington state officials reaching out to British Columbia because they knew that they had found so many feet up there. So that's where their first call went to. True Crime All the Time Unsolved is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Most of you listening right now are probably multitasking. Yep, while you're listening to Gibby and I talk, you're probably also driving, cleaning, exercising, or maybe even grocery shopping. But if you're not in some kind of moving vehicle, there's something else you can be doing right now. Getting an auto quote from Progressive Insurance. It's easy, and you can save money by doing it right from your phone. Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save nearly $700 on average. And auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Discounts for having multiple vehicles on your policy, being a homeowner, and more. So just like your favorite podcast, Progressive will be with you 24/7, 365 days a year, so you're protected no matter what. Multitask right now. Quote your car insurance at Progressive.com to join the over 29 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $698. By new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2021 and May 2022. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations. Angie's List is now Angie, the home to skilled neighborhood professionals. Angie is your home for everything home, and they've made it easier than ever to connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. If you own a home, you know how much work it can take, whether it's everyday maintenance and repairs or making dream projects a reality. It can be hard just to know where to start, but now all you need to do is Angie that and find a skilled local pro who will deliver the quality and expertise you need. Angie has over 20 years of home service experience, and they've combined it with new tools to simplify the whole process. Bring them your project online or with the Angie app. Answer a few questions, and Angie can handle the rest from start to finish, or help you compare quotes from multiple pros and connect instantly. And all of that means you can take care of just about any home project in just a few taps, because when it comes to getting the most out of your home, you can do this when you Angie that. Download the free Angie mobile app today or visit Angie.com. That's ANGI.com. On November 11, 2008, a left-footed women's New Balance running shoe was found with a foot inside in Finslaw, Richmond, in the south arm of the Fraser River. Ken Johnston, a former member of the Legislative Assembly, and his wife Diane found the shoe while they were walking along the river. Ken told CBC, "I poked it with a stick. I didn't want to touch it. It was really hard material inside the shoe. I picked it up and put it in a bag, and it was very heavy."
Again, so bizarre to even see it, pick it up, carry it, knowing that it's a human foot.
And this is why I don't hike or walk along the beach or
it's one of the reasons.
Really get out into nature at all.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons.
On December 4th, 2008, the coroner's service matched the feet found in May and November through DNA analysis. They confirmed the feet came from the same female. On October 27, 2009, two men walking on the beach in Richmond, BC, found a foot inside a Nike running shoe. A lot of Nikes.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's a lot of Nike sold. On November 5th of that year, investigators announced that the foot found on October 27th belonged to a 25-year-old man from the Lower Mainland who was reported missing in January 2008. Investigators said no foul play was suspected. The man's name was withheld at the family's request. So, one of the things that's very interesting to me is that in a lot of these cases, they were able to match the feet up to people who were known to have gone missing.
Yeah. Eventually they were able to. But it's still bizarre, man.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. Now, I've talked about my reluctance to go into the ocean.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite place.
Right.
My thought is that if we really knew how many bodies and body parts and things were in there, less people would want to go in there.
Yeah. I can see you're bobbing around out in the ocean, just first time. All right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have some fun. And then you're floating around, you turn around and there's a leg or a foot
Something.
next to you.
I've been in the ocean before.
I know.
It wouldn't be my first time.
First time again.
Yeah, it's not my favorite.
Yeah.
On August 27, 2010, another foot was found on Whidbey Island in Washington State. On December 5th, the man walking along the beach near Tacoma, Washington, found a foot inside a boy's size 6 Ozark Trail hiking boot, which was sold in Walmart in 2004 and 2005. Now, finding any foot would be horrible. It's going to be a real bad day for whoever finds it. To me, though, finding the foot of a child.
Right.
Now you're taking it to a whole different level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sad.
On May 24, 2011, Coroner's Service identified the 2 feet found in February and June of 2008 as belonging to a 21-year-old Surrey resident who was reported missing in 2004. His death was linked to misadventure and suicide, according to the Globe and Mail. The coroner's office said at that time, as reported by the Seattle Times, autopsies indicated the feet had not been mechanically removed, but rather separated through the natural processes that occur in a marine environment. So again, I think that's a theme.
It is.
We're not seeing the severing of these feet as you would think of in an obvious foul play situation.
Right.
The fact that they separated as part of a natural process, well, that's one thing. Then you got to figure out, why was the body in the water
in the first place?
Now, this person, they labeled or linked his death to what they called misadventure and suicide. So either wandered into somewhere he was unfamiliar with, got in an accident, or meant to do that.
Right.
Is the way I took that. The coroner's service withheld his identity because, again, the family requested privacy. On August 30th, 2011, the police were notified that a human foot was found in the water next to the Plaza of Nations Marina in False Creek, Vancouver. The lower leg bones were still attached to the foot, which was found inside a Bum Crosby men's size 9 running shoe. So here's the first one, at least that we've talked about, where the lower leg bones were still attached to the foot.
It's even more gruesome for me.
Yeah, it would be. So what does that mean, though? They separated somehow at the knee, but didn't separate at the ankle?
Yeah, it sounds like the knees gave away first.
On September 5th, 2011, 2 more shoes were found washed up on beaches in Oak Bay, British Columbia. But investigators noted that it looked like raw meat was stuffed into the shoes. Authorities thought the shoes were hoaxes and could be part of an annual prank tradition by Oak Bay students before their first day of school. Okay. Annual tradition. Did this start after these feet began being found? Or did this go back further? Seems like a strange tradition.
Well, it's definitely a strange hoax to pull off, especially knowing everything that's going on with these shoes and feet showing up. So to go out and buy raw meat and stuff it to a shoe just to cause some panic, I don't find that too funny.
On October 21st, 2011, ABC News reported that 2 of the feet found in May and November 2008 were identified as belonging to a woman who jumped to her death from the Patullo Bridge in New Westminster in April 2004. The woman's family asked that her identity be kept private. The other thing that's jumping out at me is, where they're finding both feet. That in and of itself almost seems odd.
It really is odd if you think about it.
Yeah, because, just even through the natural process, would both feet separate at the same time? Would the currents take them exactly in the same place?
Right.
Or maybe that's why some of them weren't found exactly in the same place, because they did separate at different points in time, and maybe the currents were different
at that time,
whatever.
Yeah.
On November 4th, 2011, a child attending a camp saw a boot floating off the shore of Sassamat Lake near Port Moody. The next morning, the boot washed up on the lake. Inside this boot was another foot. In this case, the shoe was a hiking boot, and the boot was found in fresh water rather than in the ocean.
A little twist.
Yeah, and again, to me, that's different. It doesn't mean that, somebody couldn't have drowned in a freshwater lake. Obviously, that can happen. Or a body could be dumped in a freshwater lake. On December 10th, 2011, Tricia Lapiton, a volunteer for Heroes for the Homeless, found a human leg bone and foot in a plastic bag under the Ship Canal Bridge in the East Lake neighborhood of Seattle, Washington. Tricia was in the 3100 block of Fairview Avenue East. She and other volunteers were walking in a wooded area when one of them stepped on a plastic bag. When the volunteer looked down, she saw that it could be human remains. They left the area and called the police. Again, I think exactly what I would do.
After you got done freaking out?
After I got done freaking out. But, as we read these dates, Gibbs, it's jumping out at me. It's like one a month.
Yeah.
In some cases. It's just shocking how many feet are washing up in kind of this same area. Vancouver, Washington State, British Columbia. Not all that far. On January 26, 2012, a Vancouver resident reported finding what appeared to be human bones inside a boot along the water line at the dog park near the Maritime Museum in Vancouver. On February 17th, the coroner's office issued a statement that the foot found on November 4th, 2011, belonged to a man who went missing while fishing on Sassamat Lake in January 1987. 65-year-old Stefan Zaharuko was fishing alone when he went missing. His overturned boat was found in the lake, but he was never found. And maybe that's one thing we need to talk about that we haven't. There are a lot of accidents on the water.
There is.
When you're dealing with boats, people fall overboard, people drown.
Never to be found until something breaks loose.
Now, what I did find to be a little strange is that, it took, 25 years from the time that this guy went missing to the time that the foot was found or identified.
Makes you wonder, what did it take to finally break loose and come to the surface and find its self ashore.
Yeah, is it harder in the lake versus the ocean where you have more current? And I don't know. On October 2012, a right foot was found in False Creek, Vancouver. DNA analysis linked the foot to the one found in August 2011, which was eventually linked to a male who went missing in 2010. And to me, the other thing is you have families out there wondering what happened to their loved ones. In the case of this 65-year-old man, they know something bad happened. Right? His overturned boat is found. I'm sure they assumed that he drowned, but they never found his body. And then 25 years later, his foot washes up.
We go to the family, hey, we got his foot. We got his foot for you.
Is that some solace or not? Because all you have is a foot?
Yeah, I think you kind of probably realized he was dead at the bottom of the water.
Probably realized that for a long time.
Yeah, but still, it probably brought some type of peace.
On May 6, 2014, another foot was found near Pier 86 in Seattle. The foot was found inside a white New Balance sneaker by volunteers who were cleaning trash. On February 7, 2016, a hiker on Botanical Beach near Port Renfrew, BC, found a running shoe with a foot inside. On February 12th, another person walking on Botanical Beach found a matching running shoe with a foot inside. On February 16th, the coroner's service confirmed the second foot was human and that the shoes and feet matched.
So there the feet showed up
5 days apart or so. The shoes were size 12, blue and black, New Balance men's running shoes. The shoes were first sold in North America in March 2013, which means the owner died sometime between March 2013 and December 2015. An examination suggested that both feet disarticulated naturally as a result of prolonged immersion in water.
So I'm getting it, right? It's a natural process that occurs. But again, what the heck were the bodies doing in the water anyway?
And why so many
in that time frame, right?
In that time frame, in a similar area.
And if they're finding them there, how come we haven't found them on other coastlines?
Yeah, I just wonder if it has something to do with the way that the currents run there. I just don't know. On December 7th, 2017, a man walking his dogs near the Jordan River northwest of Sook, British Columbia, found a foot inside a shoe. Part of the leg was still attached. The man took the bones home and then contacted the police. Mike Johns, the man who found the foot, told the New York Times he did this because he worried it would get washed away or attract animals. And I get that. I get that thinking. But I'm struggling putting myself in this position to think that I'm going to gather up these bones.
Yeah.
And take them to my house, inside my house. First of all, my wife would not be happy.
No.
But I understand his thinking, right? An animal's going to come along, scatter these bones, and then whatever evidence this is going to be lost.
Trying to protect that stuff.
Yes. On February 21st, 2018, it was announced that the coroner's service completed DNA analysis of the remains found on December 7th. The foot belonged to 79-year-old Stanley Okumoto from East Bremerton, Washington. He went missing on September 19th, 2017. His vehicle was found on the 20th in Clallam County. Stanley was found in Clallam County 2 months later, but was missing his left leg and foot. The cause and manner of his death could not be determined, but foul play was not suspected, according to the Peninsula Daily News. The Kitsap County Sheriff's Office ended its investigation. And I found this one to be very strange. So obviously the whole body was not in the water.
Right.
And then, the foot and leg kind of dislodged from the rest of the body. They found the rest of his body. So how did the foot and leg get to, where it was ultimately found?
Maybe an animal dragged it there.
Down to the river?
Yeah.
Maybe. There are a lot of possible explanations for some of these. The problem is they're all just theories.
Theories.
There's no way to know for sure. On May 6, 2018, a man walking along the shore of Gabriola Island found a foot inside a hiking boot. This foot was eventually linked to a man who went missing earlier that year.
I mean, good thing is they're linking these to individuals.
Yeah, that part is kind of amazing. Now, I'm wondering, and I'm thinking about myself here, if I live in these areas, do I want to walk along the beach? Do I want to go out hiking? Or did some people do it because they thought they might find something? That is a possibility.
Yeah.
Andy Watson, a spokesman for the Coroner Service, said in May 2018 that foul play had been ruled out in all cases. In September 2018, a left foot was found inside a blue sock inside a light gray Nike men's running shoe on a beach in West Vancouver. Investigators solved this case in 2019. They determined the manufacture date of the shoes and noted that the shoe matched information from a missing persons report. The family of the missing person provided DNA samples for comparison, and they got a match. And, this type of investigative work is absolutely fascinating. Where you're looking into this specific shoe.
Right.
When was it manufactured? Where was it distributed?
For how long?
For how long was it sold? And then, you're trying to match it with missing persons cases that happened, during this same time frame. According to an article by National Geographic, science can explain why so many feet have been found on beaches and why so many are showing up in this particular area. They said that disarticulated feet have been found in other bodies of water around the world. According to Vox, in November 2018, a foot inside a sneaker was found in a dumpster next to a boat ramp on the Willamette River near Portland. In 2017, a foot inside an athletic shoe was found on a dock in Charleston. Hikers found a foot inside a tennis shoe on the banks of the Mississippi near St. Louis. And a foot washed up in Rio de Janeiro near the beach volleyball courts before the 2016 Olympics, right? So feet are being found all over the place.
I get it, but not at the level they're finding them over in British Columbia.
And down Vancouver and Seattle. Yeah, I would agree with you there. According to National Geographic, once a body is in the water, it will either float or sink. A floating body will be carried by wind and currents and may soon be found washed ashore. A body that sinks may stay in place or be moved somewhere else by deeper currents. And they said that a floating body will decompose differently than one that sinks. According to a 1977 article from the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology titled Human Body Buoyancy, a study of 98 men. Bodies are overall more likely to sink than float, and drowning victims are the most likely to sink. When a body sinks, it typically goes to the bottom of the ocean. A body that sinks can sometimes bloat and then rise to the surface, but this doesn't always happen. If a body is in a deep area of a lake or ocean, it may never come up again. Additionally, colder water temperatures in deep areas delay decomposition, and water pressure prevents gases from expanding and causing bodies to float. Forensic anthropologist Laura Yazigian told National Geographic that in deep water, body tissues are converted to adipocere, which is a waxy soap-like tissue. It can last for centuries in a low oxygen environment. When she examined the feet that were found in the ocean, they were covered in adipocere, which suggested the body sank and remained underwater during decomposition.
Maybe that's why some of the feet didn't decompose so quickly.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. National Geographic also offered an explanation for why the feet separated from the bodies. In summer 2007, forensic scientist Gail Anderson from Simon Fraser University was conducting a study for the Canadian Police Research Center to understand how quickly a homicide victim would decompose in the ocean. She used a pig for her study for ethical reasons. She also conducted her study in the Salish Sea, where the feet were found. The research team dropped the dead pig into the water, and it sank 308 feet to the sea floor. The pig's body was then consumed by shrimp, lobsters, and crab. Anderson dropped more pig cadavers into the Strait of Georgia, a main channel of the Salish Sea. Her research found that scavengers can skeletonize a carcass in less than 4 days. Underwater scavengers typically target softer tissues, and it was written that ankles have soft tissues. Scavengers consume this area, which means the feet would be disarticulated from the rest of the body.
And that makes sense.
It does.
I hate thinking the fact of what's going on down there.
Well, it's gruesome.
It is.
Yeah, it is a little gruesome, but you got to kind of talk through the science to kind of help explain why this would happen.
Maybe you won't eat lobster anymore.
No, I'll still eat shrimp, lobster, crab.
Not going to stop you.
Not going to stop me. Yazigian told National Geographic that the feet appeared to have been separated from the bodies by natural processes, and said that the coroner's service didn't find marks on the bones to suggest the feet were cut off. And that's important. We haven't talked about that. You know, that's something that you see in a lot of cases where hands and feet and other body parts are actually severed.
Right.
You know, they can look at a bone and see tool marks,
Yes.
saw marks,
Yes.
things like that. And obviously here in this situation, they're not seeing any of that.
Probably just looks like wear and tear.
Yeah. Finally, sneakers made in the last decade almost always float because the soles have gas-filled pockets, and the foam used in the soles have more air mixed in. You know, I just finished watching that movie Air.
Right.
The story of how Nike landed Michael Jordan. You know, and you think back to when we were younger, what shoes were like, what athletic shoes, sneakers were like.
Yeah.
They're almost like bricks, man. There was no padding, very little padding. And now it's all composite foam, air filled, everything. So you could see why today versus a long time ago. I think if you throw Chuck Taylors into the water,
They're sink.
they'll sink.
Yeah.
But if you throw some Nike Airs in there, they're probably going to float.
Absolutely. Yeah, think about those spongy shoes today, because I bought a pair of Hoka, Hoka. I guess they're one of the hot shoes right now. I didn't know that. I just wanted to buy one that was comfy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like walking on a cloud, you know? But
Have you ever walked on a cloud? People say that all the
that's
time.
true. Yes, I have. But they're super comfy, but they're like really light.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm not going to throw them in water because, I'm not going to do that, but
They would probably float.
absolutely. I mean, they're just, I think they barely weigh a pound together.
Parker McCready, a professor of oceanography at the University of Washington in Seattle, explained that the Salish Sea has an unusually large and complex body of inland water, which acts as a trap. The prevailing winds on the sea bring things in from the ocean rather than pushing things out to sea. So I think you can see how science is trying to explain why so many of these feet were found in kind of a specific area.
Yeah. Now I'm getting it, right? We're seeing how the winds drove those items there.
According to National Geographic, the coroner's service compared DNA from each foot to a database of over 500 missing people in British Columbia, as well as Canada's National Missing Persons DNA program, which started in 2018. None of the Canadian cases have found to be homicide. In some cases, the foot belonged to someone who died of an accident or suicide. For the individuals who went missing without any witnesses, it's almost impossible to determine a cause of death. And I would say more than almost impossible. If all you have is a foot, I don't know what you're determining from that.
Yeah, you don't have really any good evidence.
According to an article from CBC News 13, mysteries involving feet found in shoes have been solved by the coroner's service. The two men's shoes found in February 2016 are the only unsolved case. Investigators sent DNA samples to Washington State in case the individual went into the water around Port Angeles and drifted to Vancouver Island. And that's pretty amazing because we talked about a lot, right? There was like 20 plus feet that were found. And really, what are they saying? There's only 2 that haven't been solved. Now, solved meaning either identified or something like that.
Right.
Maybe not as solved as to what happened.
Right. But who
That's
do these
virtually
feet belong
impossible.
to?
Yes.
Yeah.
There are 2 recent unsolved cases in Washington State that involved suspicious disappearances of 2 individuals. On January 1st, 2019, beachgoers on Jetty Island in Everett, Washington, found a human foot inside a boat. On February 5th, 2019, Snohomish County Sheriff's Office announced that the foot belonged to 22-year-old Antonio Neal, who had been missing since December 2016. Antonio was presumed dead. Antonio's mother, Jenny, told the Herald-Net that she believed someone harmed her son. She said, "It's so scary not having all of him and just not knowing what's going on." Now, I'd like to say that I found a little peace from finally getting it confirmed, but it's hard to have peace when his killer is still out there. So that confirms a little bit maybe about what you and I were talking about.
Sure.
Some peace, but in his case or in her case, not much because she believes he was murdered.
Right. And she wants answers.
And she wants answers as to who did it. The one thing that struck me was that he went missing in December of 2016. The foot was found in early 2019. So it took a number of years for this boot to wash up. Now, what I don't know is how much of that time was needed for the foot to dislodge, and then how much of that time was for it to wash up.
I think every case is going to be different. The decomposition, the scavengers.
Yeah, they all can't happen exactly the same, right? With the same time frame. There's a lot of variables there. Antonio struggled with drugs and alcohol. In his late teens and early 20s, he started using heroin and meth and was in and out of treatment. Antonio started his own bonfire group for people in recovery. He was kicked out of sober housing in September 2016. When he relapsed, he slept in his car or on his friends' couches. He spent a month in jail when he didn't check in with his probation officer. Antonio went missing just one day after he got out of jail on December 12, 2016. He was going through a difficult time. His car, wallet, and license had recently been stolen. While he was in jail, his girlfriend broke up with him, and his uncle passed away. However, Jenny said that on the day she last saw him, Antonio was in good spirits. He came to visit her on the morning of December 12th, and they spent the day together. She took him to get a new license, and they ordered a new cell phone. Antonio never came to pick it up. That says something to me, and I'm sure that says something to her as well. People like their cell phones.
They do.
And so if she has agreed to get him a new one and he's deciding not to come pick it up, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, that kind of tells you there's something going on right there.
Right.
Yeah.
That forced him to not be able to come pick up that cell phone. One of Antonio's longtime acquaintances told him he could stay at his place, which was located in the Riverside neighborhood of Everett. He picked Antonio up that evening. It was a cold night, and Antonio was last seen wearing only a t-shirt and jeans. He left his coats and blankets at his friend's house. Jenny believes Antonio relapsed that night. He never had really gone more than 3 days without talking to his mom, and he usually called every day. Jenny talked to his friends who said Antonio attacked him and ran out of the house. Jenny reported him missing 2 weeks later when he didn't show up for Christmas. He was reportedly seen at a grocery store on December 24th, and there were reports of someone matching his description in homeless camps, none of which, though, are verified. The medical examiner and sheriff's office have not determined the cause of death. Sheriff's office spokesperson Courtney O'Keefe told People, investigators don't know what happened to Antonio. They are keeping all doors open. We cannot rule out homicide or suicide. O'Keefe added, there are no suspects currently because we don't know what happened. We essentially can't have a suspect and a crime.
And they're right. You got to be able to have a crime. You got to be able to have something to go off of.
If you have no way to definitively say there was a crime, pretty tough to say that you have a suspect or to even get to that point. On February 21st, 2023, the Clallam County Sheriff's Office announced on Facebook that a shoe with a foot inside was found near the mouth of the Elwha River in Port Angeles, Washington in December 2021. In 2022, the Sheriff's Office used crowdsourced funding to partner with Othram Labs in Texas to identify the remains. Othram provided a list of surviving family members. Sheriff's detectives contacted one surviving family member who gave a DNA sample. Othram confirmed the match. The woman was identified as 68-year-old Geraldine Smith. And Othram Labs has kind of been at the forefront. They've been in the middle of a lot of these familial DNA matches.
Yeah.
According to the missing persons report, Smith and her husband went to bed on the night of January 6, 2018 at their home in Sequim, Washington. In the middle of the night, Jerry Lynn's husband went to sleep on the couch. He went to church in the morning without seeing her. When he came back, she was not there. Her car was found near the Elwha River Bridge and east of Port Angeles. Search and rescue dogs traced her scent to the middle of the bridge over the river, but didn't find her. So again, they know who this person is, but they don't know exactly what happened to her.
You can speculate.
You can, when you think about scent dogs tracking her to the middle of the bridge. Well, for me, you really have just a couple of options. Either she took her own life by jumping off the bridge, or somebody forced her off,
right,
or threw her off. So, we titled this The Severed Feet Mystery. A little misleading, I guess, but it's called that by a lot of people.
It is.
I think the question of how what really should be termed the disarticulated feet ended up on beaches in Washington and British Columbia is really not a mystery. I think science has kind of proven how those feet would separate
and come ashore.
But I think in a lot of these cases, how those individuals died or ended up in the water is still the mystery.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think in a lot of cases, there's just no way to know. If you don't have an eyewitness and you don't ever find the rest of the body,
you're never going to know.
I don't know how you would know. But I do think it's important that science was able to, identify these people. So their families at least know that.
And what an amazing job they did.
Yeah.
You think about how many feet they were able to identify.
Well, it just shows you what technology can do nowadays. I mean, if we're talking about 40 years ago,
just be a lot of feet somewhere.
Just a lot of feet.
Yeah.
But I think people still find a lot of mystery, in this case, not so much in the fact that you just have a bunch of feet. Now, is it strange that it's one area? I think it's a little less strange when people explain the currents and how this is kind of a trap or a catch.
Yes.
Where a lot of things end up. Well, that makes a little more sense.
Yeah, when you can explain the reasons behind it, then you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I just wonder, how many of these are suicides? Because I'm sure there are some.
Sure.
And how many of these are the result of foul play? And then, when you talk about foul play, is it a one-off crime, murder? Are some of these a result of a serial killer? So then you can go down those avenues.
Yeah, and you also can think about, okay, this is this one region.
Mm-hmm.
What about all the other regions that don't have the wind and the current that traps and blows things back in?
They're all laying at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, or they're pushed further out in sea.
Which is a very scary thing to me. Or they're just floating, right, somewhere out in the middle of the ocean somewhere.
Right, wait for your cruise ship to go by and you look over and go like, hey, is that a foot?
I don't even want to know what all is in there. But that is it for our episode on the severed feet mystery. Still a mystery.
Yeah.
Not as much of a mystery as I think maybe it was at one time.
Yeah.
Because you had all these feet without explanation as to how they ended up there.
Something a little different for us.
Sure.
But it was something interesting and felt like we wanted to cover it.
Yeah, not focused on, one person or anything like that. Focused on, this kind of phenomenon that stretched over a number of years. Yeah. And it really is still a mystery part of it to this day.
Just think about that next time you put down on your... what are you looking for in a person? Long walks on a beach.
Not in British Columbia or Washington State. Yeah. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Boy, I was just listening to the episode about Chris Kramer's and Blizan Froon, and I had to stop because you were cracking me up. I don't know what you were trying to say, Mike Ferguson, but you trailed off while you were trying to say it. You said something like parasitio, and now we all know that Gibby is cooler than a polar bear's toenails. And when he tries to mispronounce something, he says it with gusto. He just goes for it. He mispronounces it, and you bust his chops every time. And he didn't say anything when you did that. And you said, okay, I don't know how to say that. But you managed to become the first podcaster who mispronounced something so badly that you turned it into the chorus of an Outkast song. Hooty hoo, my friend. Hooty hoo.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what that was, but it sounds like something I would do. So the whole thing is Gibby's supposed to point that out, but I'm not sure whether you're sure if it's wrong or right. I even said I was probably wrong.
I'm not sure if I'm even sure. About what
we're talking about.
Hey, staying out in Florida. I was in the middle of your podcast for this week, and the SI, the Honda SI. The SI means it's a stick. It's a 5-speed because I just had one. I had a Civic SI. But there you go. You'll probably get a few calls on that. But have a good one, guys. Take care.
No, that's interesting. Things that you think a lot of people would write in about or call about, they don't. So that's the first time I've heard it.
Yes,
makes a lot of sense, but I didn't know that.
You think it makes sense?
Well, I think it makes sense in that it's a differentiation.
Yeah.
But I don't know what SI means.
That's what I'm wondering, because I get
like
that.
SM, Sport Manual, or MS, Manual Sport,
or SE Special Edition.
Manual Transmission, MT.
LE Limited Edition. I'm thinking SI, would it be ST for stick? Or
I don't know.
SI for, I don't know.
I don't know what it stands for. Actually, Manual Transmission, MT would make the most sense.
It doesn't sound cool, though, if you say I'm driving a, whatever, what was the car? I can't even remember what it was called now. Wasn't it Accord? It was a Honda CRX.
Yeah.
CRX MT. I don't know. That kind of sounds good. Okay.
It kind of rolled off your tongue.
Yeah.
But we appreciate you calling in and enlightening us.
Yes, thank you.
Don't know if it'll ever come up again, but if it does,
we're on it.
Will we even remember?
Yeah, I will.
We'll have to see. All right, buddy. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
It's a streaming hot summer on Pluto TV featuring hit blockbusters during popcorn summer movies. Watch Mark Wahlberg try and solve a murder in Four Brothers or go on an adventure with an Indiana Jones movie marathon. Plus, Pluto TV has hundreds of channels with thousands more movies available live and on demand. Download Pluto TV on all your favorite devices for free. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.